All right, the second live stream of today. Promise I'll try to not make it as long as the first. This one is Life Science Series Epidemics by Lillian Dugan. Okay. And it has some terms for us, vocabulary terms, chromosomes, diffusion, DNA, endoplasmic reticulation, mitochondria, mitosis, organelle, osmosis, ribosomes. And the extended vocabulary is comprising of the words cholera, endemic, epidemic, immunization, outbreak, pandemic, toxin. All right. The first part says what you know already. All living things are made of cells. A cell is the smallest unit that carry out the activities necessary for life. Some organisms are made up of a single cell. Each part of a cell is an organism and does a particular job. In a multicellular organism, different cells perform different jobs. Cells were first discovered in 1655 by Robert Hooke. Over time, more and more scientists studied cells. Their observations formed the basis of cell theory. All cells must perform certain functions. Organelles are structures inside cells to different jobs. Cytoplasm is the liquid fluid that contains the organelles. Mitochondria converts food into a usable form. Lysosomes contain chemicals that break down harmful molecules or worn out cell parts. The endoplasmic reticulum transports substances within the cell. Ribosomes begin the process of making cells. That cell also has chloroplast, which contains chlorophyll, such as nutrients, salts, and water in order to perform life function. Nutrients and salts move in and out of the cells by a process called diffusion. When diffusion takes place, the substance moves from a high concentration to an area of low concentration. That's the definition of diffusion. When water moves into and out of a cell, this is called osmosis. Osmosis is diffusion across a membrane. Cells must remain small so that materials don't have to travel too far for life's function and continue. As cells grow, there isn't enough surface area to allow materials to move into and out of a cell. When cells get too large, they divide. Cell division starts mitosis, which is a division of cells nucleus. So that's reproduction because of the nucleus, which is the brain of the cell, divides. That's mitosis, which is reproduction, which is multiplication. DNA is a material located in the nucleus that stores information about organisms' growth and development. During mitosis, DNA curls tightly to a red-shaped body called chromosomes. Mitosis ensures that each new cell gets the correct number of chromosomes. When cells are healthy, they function properly. But sometimes cells come under attack by foreign invaders such as viruses and bacteria. In this book, you will learn more about viruses and bacteria and how disease they cause can spread around the world. And this is a picture of the measles virus. Next chapter is epidemic. Suppose you wake up and realize your throat is sore and your nose is running. Your body has been invaded by a virus. Luckily for you, the virus is not very dangerous. Okay. It causes the common cold, one of many infectious diseases caused by microorganisms such as viruses and bacteria. Microorganisms known as microbes can be carried by animal humans through the air. This is one way infectious diseases can spread. Viruses are the smallest microorganisms. Many viruses consist of DNA surrounded by a protein coat. A virus can survive only when it is inside the cell of a living being called the host. So the protein coat around a virus protects the virus and it can only survive when it's inside a living cell or else it can't survive. Virus encounters a host cell It injects its DNA into the host site facet. The viral DNA enters the cell nucleus and instructs the cell to make copies of the virus. The host cell is destroyed. Copies of the virus are released and in effect. Anyway, many bacteria are helpful to humans, but some also cause disease. Bacteria enter the body through the mouth, nose, or cuts in the skin. Once inside the body, they multiply. When the numbers are high enough, bacteria can cause an infection to begin. Some infection caused by toxins, harmful chemicals that contain bacteria released in the body. When people start living in urban communities, which is another fancy way of saying towns and cities, infectious disease become a threat because they could pass easily from person to person. Many infectious diseases affect a small number of people and last for a short period, but sometimes infectious disease spread across large distances, infecting many people and lasting for years. These diseases are called epidemics. If epidemics spread throughout a country or continent or the entire world, it's called a pandemic. They exist all the time in certain places. What is an epidemic? Epidemics thrive in crowded places. Infectious disease have the opportunity to spread easily when people live and work and travel in close quarters. Countries with large populations living in small areas are more likely to experience epidemics. One reason some diseases spread easily is that symptoms don't appear right away. When people are first infected with a virus, they usually don't even know. People infected might ride the crowd train before beginning to feel any symptoms. By the time they feel ill, they may have already infected other people. How epidemic changing. After a few infectious disease surface, people build resistance to it over a long period of time. The immune system learns to recognize the disease and fight it. But the bacteria and viruses can also adapt. They change into new strains that the immune system cannot fight. People, therefore, became infected more quickly. Other factors that also contribute to the spread of disease: water pollution results in ideal conditions for disease causing microorganisms to live and breathe. Pollution of the water leads to epidemics such as cholera. Travel has been a major spread of epidemics for hundreds of years. When merchants and traders began to explore new lands in the 1300s, they brought diseases with them. Christopher Columbus' journey to Americas resulted in the death of many peoples by diseases such as smallpox and measles. As the human population increases, people and animals live closer and closer together. This has made people more susceptible to diseases carried by animals. In tropical areas around the world, forests have been cut down to make room for farms and cities. These tropical forests had been home to disease beetles for hundreds of years. Today, when people make plans to cut down the forest, they should take special measures to reduce the threat posed by these insects. The plague. Epidemics of infectious disease, the most famous recurrent epidemic are those caused by plagues. Over the past 1500 years, four major plagues and epidemics have come and gone. The first began in Egypt in the 6th century, started in the 1300s. The second great one was known as the Black Death, which swept through the Middle East and Europe. In medieval Europe, people lived in crowded and unsanitary conditions, allowing the plague to spread rapidly, and this was also called the Black Death. The population of many cities were cut in half when the plague first hit, and it was far spread. Many people abandoned their homes. When the third outbreak, known as the Great Plague, reached London in 1665, royalty and wealthy people fled the city seeking safety in the country. Unfortunately, rural areas were enslaved or unsafe from the plague as the cities were. The Great Plague took close to 100,000 lives in London alone. People were unable to stop the plague because they did not know what caused it. During the 1600s, some believed the plague was caused by foul air. They carried little pomander boxes of aromatic substances looking like healers for cure. Several outbreaks occurred throughout Europe until the cycle ended in 1750. However, a fourth epidemic began in China a century later. It spread worldwide and became a pandemic after 100 years of recurring epidemics that killed millions and caused the plague. Then a cure was finally found. Scientists discovered that the plague was caused by a black rat that carried a certain bacterium. Bacterium spreads it from fleas to it and it lives on the rat. The fleas pass the rats to the human when they bite. Since rats live near people, the fleas were able to find their hosts easily. So it was actually caused by fleas, but the fleas transported by the rats. In 1896, a vaccine was developed to protect people from plague. The vaccine is a weakened form of disease that helps the immune system to defend itself. Occasional, occasional, occasional outbreaks of plague have occurred in recent history. During Vietnam War, plague hit the country of Vietnam. Another epidemic broke out in India in 1994, killing about 50, people. Thanks to the vaccine and to modern antibiotics, these outbreaks do not have the devastating effects of plagues in the past. Cholera. Cholera occurs when water is contaminated. With the cholera bacterium, these bacteria enters the body and multiply in the intestines and diarrhea. These can lead to dehydration, which is a loss of body fluids and salt. The first cholera epidemic began in the 1800s in India. Sailors and traders who visited India became infected. When they set sail for other lands, they took the disease with them. The epidemic first spread to Asia and then to the Middle East. By 1832, it reached Europe and the United States. Like the plague, people didn't know what caused cholera. For years, they were unable to stop it. All they could do was treat the symptoms. Many travelers carried chest-containing medicine to relieve symptoms, drinking fluid to help against dehydration. An outbreak in London in 1854 led to people realizing that poor sanitation conditions cause cholera bacteria to thrive. Sanitation was a cholera epidemic in those regions. Some places still have outbreaks of cholera. People may live in areas where sanitation is poor and drinking water is contaminated. In 1991, a foreign ship released thousands of gallons of cholera-infected water in the harbor of Lima, Peru. The foods were washed or cooked in it were contaminated and it became infected. Cholera quickly spread through Latin America. Today's cholera victims can be treated with a simple rehydration kit. The kit contains powdered medicine and a dosing spoon. Once the body is hydrated, it can better fight the infection. Influenza, commonly known as flu, is a viral disease. It causes symptoms such as fever, aching muscles, coughing. Like all other viral diseases, the flu cannot be cured. Medicines only ease symptoms. Most people bodies can handle the flu. However, young people, elderly people with respiratory problems will be severely affected. The flu often breaks out into epidemics. Two flu pandemics have occurred in the recent past between 1918 and 1920, and the other between 1957 and 1958. And the pandemic of 1918 to 1920 spread throughout the world. Many soldiers serving in World War I were affected. 15 million people died in the war, but influenza killed at least 20 million. Researchers closely follow the spread of the pandemic of 1957 to 1958 It began in Southeast Asia, where animals such as ducks, chickens, and pigs lived in close contact with humans. Since the viruses move easily between animals and humans, these conditions led to many outbreaks. The virus left thank you, Southeast Asian cities such as Hong Kong, Singapore, on ship lines and airlines. Within 6 months, it spread throughout the world. Today, we have vaccines to help protect us from the flu. Doctors recommend that people who are especially susceptible to the flu be vaccinated regularly, but the flu infection can be difficult to stop. Vaccines give people immunity to particular strains. Having immunity from one strain does not prevent immunity from infection from another strain. Flu viruses can change very quickly into new strains and against people who do not have immunity. See the girl wearing her face mask playing tennis? To fight infection by immunizing people. Immunization makes people safe, immune, resistant to specific disease. Vaccination is the most common way of immunizing. Vaccines are usually injected into the arm. The body detects the vaccine, it makes antibodies to fight the disease. Later, the same disease causes microorganism enters the body against the immune system, remembers these antibodies. It makes antibodies again and destroys the diseases. People can also, maybe I need some rest because I wasn't caught up in this much this morning. All right. 1 second. Hello, good morning. Yes, you are speaking to. I'm doing good. How are you? Wait, for me to wait. They need oil. Oh, yes. Sorry, what I can select. With, right? No, I didn't have any issues per se with the service. The model sometimes goes down. Sometimes the transactions aren't being, yeah, they work out. But I'm not sure it's because the units are not available. But it's not a lot of problems that has there are issues with modeling that occur. Business. He says since he has problem with the statements, but personally, for what I use it for, it is satisfactory, but it needs some improvement. That's the website itself. Okay, it's for the right way, but it is satisfactory for now, for my purposes. No, not right. Okay. All right, same to you, sir. Have a good day. Okay. Epidemics can last for many years due to unsanitary conditions, changes of microorganisms, travel, population growth leads to quick spread. The plague, cholera, flu have all caused millions of lives. However, good sanitization, immunization help people reduce their impacts. These methods of fighting disease are still used to keep people healthy today. Regular exercise, good food. Glossary defines cholera, epidemic, endemic, immunization, outbreak, pandemic, and toxins. So that's the second string.